Hello and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast. Today, my guest is Chris Shelton, who is a Qigong master, a healer, and an author of 2 books. And today he is here to teach us about Qigong, which is an ancient Chinese medicine practice that's over 5,000 years old. Chris starts off telling about his childhood, where he came from a broken family, where there was neglect, abuse, and addiction. And at the age of 17, he had a very rude wake-up call when he had 2 heart attacks due to addiction. And then shortly after that, he suffered a debilitating back injury that left him almost unable to walk. It was these things that moved him towards the practice of Qigong that absolutely transformed his life. And so today he shares some tricks and tips to help us that we can utilize in our lives right now that are practices from Qigong. And Qigong is really about moving the emotional blockages within the body so that we can heal ourselves and have a healthy body. A lot of the ailments and the diseases and the things that we suffer have a root cause of the emotional piece in our body. And it's about moving through those and processing those that the healing begins. And so Chris shares so much knowledge about this topic. So I hope you'll have some amazing practical insights and takeaways from today's podcast. And please, if you're enjoying them, take a moment to give us a like, a share, and a subscribe. And so much gratitude if you leave a comment and a review. And I want to thank you so much for being here today. Enjoy. Hello, and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast, a place to explore possibility through mindfulness, movement, and self-discovery. Our intention is to deliver insight and inspiration while fostering conversations that are genuine, unfiltered, and deeply human. We hope you will enjoy today's episode. Hi, Chris. Good morning, and welcome to the Connected Community Podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited because we're going to talk about Qigong today. Am I even saying that right?
You are. And what's funny is you actually pronounced it correctly, because a lot of times people will call our office and they'll say, yeah, I'm interested in that Qigong class.
Oh, yeah.
Who's Qui and where'd she go?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Perfect. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
And the reason I wanted you on here is that I don't really know much about it. I know that there's a little bit of Tai Chi is related, and I have done Tai Chi, and so I'm familiar with that practice. So for people that have never heard of it, what is Qigong, and what is that practice, and where does it originate from?
So Qigong is about a 5,000-year-old practice. It's originated in China, and though you don't have to be Chinese to practice it, it is actually the foundation of Tai Chi, or actually it's pronounced Tai Chi, and also classical Chinese medicine. When people say, well, what's classical Chinese medicine? Acupuncture. So if you've ever been an acupuncturist before, the origin started with Qigong first. And so Qi is the life force energy that emanates through all living things. Gong is the skill in which to harness this energy, in this case, in your body, to be able to enhance your life, and also be able to give you tools to work with your mental emotional state. So if you ever heard of the term Kung Fu, that means skill with the fist. And so this is a skill. Now, there is a component of Qigong for internal martial arts, and that's a totally different topic. But what we're teaching here is the foundations of Chinese medicine. And because the foundations of Chinese medicine is that the leading cause of death and disease is negative emotions. And it's not that these emotions are bad, it's when they're not processed properly, suppressed, or even worse, when a patient detaches from a certain emotion, like anger, for example.
Yeah. All right. Before we completely deep dive into that topic, I would love for you to share with our audience, like how you got drawn to Qigong. You have a pretty intense story with a really beautiful ending. So I'm wondering if you're willing to share part of your story with us.
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up in a dysfunctional home, and there's a lot of fighting and neglect, a lot of neglect, abuse. I didn't get punched in the face all the time, occasionally though. And so I started doing drugs at age 12. And my second cousin, who had moved in after my parents divorced finally, which was a blessing, my second cousin moved in, and he didn't fly colors, but he rode with HAs. And so I had access to all this stuff, and plus I started working at a young age. And so I was accumulating money. And so anyways, started doing these drugs. And finally, by my senior year, my birthday's in September, right before my 19th birthday, I had my first heart attack from a meth overdose.
Oh my gosh.
And what was interesting about it, though, is that I hadn't used in 2 days.
Mm.
And so anyways, I heard the physician. I was, in the ER behind the curtain, and the physician was talking to my father, and he said, if your son was any older, this would have killed him.
Yeah.
But because also I was doing sports, wrestling, those kinds of things, I think that also, so age, also being, kind of fit. Obviously, if you're doing drugs, you're not fully fit.
Right.
And anyway, so I heard the doctor tell my father, that your son got a hold of some bad stuff. And I thought to myself, well, shoot, I've done stuff that hasn't gotten me off before, but nothing's done this to me.
Mm-hmm.
So a few months later, I used again, and I had another heart attack.
Oh my
But
gosh.
because of the shame surrounding the first one, I didn't call 911 that day. That day, I was just going to die. I accepted that if that was what was supposed to happen, that was going to happen. Luckily, that did not happen, and a cardiologist had confirmed that I did have a minor second heart attack. And he told me, Chris, unfortunately, because of your age, we don't know what kind of damage you've done. You just might not wake up one day. So that was
Wow.
my wake-up call, like, oh man, I need to change my path, otherwise I'm going to end up dead, in prison, or both. So I put myself into Taekwondo to change my path. I started competing right away as soon as I got my yellow belt, and I started competing full contact, and did a couple competitions. And then one night before a competition, I was accidentally kicked in the back and left with a devastating back injury.
Mm.
And doctors were saying, Chris, if you don't have surgery and you move the wrong way, you may not be able to walk again, have sex
Wow.
again, things you take for granted.
Wow.
And a different physician, she had a different idea. And anyway, so I started working with her. She had a therapist working for her. He was a martial artist, and he was talking to me about Qi. Now, this is over 33 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, right. And now I'm like 21 years old, right? And I'm like, yeah, right, Qi. Like the closest thing to Qi I'm going to get is like Cheez-Its and Cheese Whiz. And so I started taking these Qigong classes, and there's only a couple women in the class at the time, and they're very simple, gentle movements. In fact, it's easier than Tai Chi. And at first, I really thought I was kind of like this Qi dud, because I was not experiencing anything.
Mm-hmm.
These other women in the class were like, oh, wow, I'm having this sensation, that sensation. I may be getting a little hot, cold sensation, but that's all I'm getting.
Yeah.
And because I had other health problems too, I had severe digestive issues, I had severe chronic sinusitis, I had severe allergies. I lived on all kinds of medications and antibiotics. And I kid you not, but about 6 months into doing these practices daily,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't tell you exactly when things changed, but it's just the realization, like, oh, wow, when did I stop living on the antibiotics? When did I stop living on these over-the-counter medications? And I thought, wow, if a simple, specific meditation and specific gentle movement could do this to me, there must be something to the medicine. So that's when I dove in deeper into Qigong,
Yeah.
and then started studying classical Chinese medicine.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's been quite a journey. That's for sure.
Yeah. And so for Tai Chi, I think I'm saying that wrong, but for, for Tai Chi, when I did it, it felt like a moving meditation. Is Qigong similar in that way, or is the meditative aspect, is it woven in or is it separate?
So Tai Chi, and a lot of people don't really realize that Tai Chi is a martial art. So I used to compete with Tai Chi as a martial
Yeah.
art. I was ranked 10th in the U.S. at one point. And what's funny is because you see the slow people doing it at the park, like especially in San Francisco or whatever, and you see these slow movements. So people say, "So how do you fight with Tai Chi? Do you go tag you're it?"
No.
No, no. But all those movements in Tai Chi are actually fighting applications. And what Tai Chi does is it teaches you first how to listen to your body. So
Mm-hmm.
normally with Tai Chi, there's a form. It's a sequence of movements. And I practiced and trained under Tony Wong, who does traditional Chen family Tai Chi. So there's still a Chen village in China where they train it full time as a martial art. And so there's specific sequence of movements, but there's proper structure and mind intent. So when you hear people talk about the health benefits of Tai Chi or Tai Chi, the health benefits come about as a result of the mindfulness, because it's really hard. The forms are really complicated, especially in Chen family Tai Chi, very complicated. And so if you start to drift thinking about something else, you're going to mess up on the form. So it teaches you mindfulness, proper body mechanics and proper body alignment, and then proper breathing work as well too. So this is where you hear about it benefiting people with hypertension, other inflammatory conditions. Qigong, though, yes, there are moving sets like in a form, like a kata, like you would do in karate or taekwondo. But most of the practices that we teach are stationary, and they're gentle movements. And in particular, the difference is that we are focusing on particular organs of the body, because the 5 major organs of the body, the heart, the lungs, the liver, the spleen, and the kidneys, are mainly responsible for sustaining life. And so we focus, a lot of the Qigong practices helps to focus on these organs, because a lot of people don't realize, like, I didn't know that anger attacks your liver and your gallbladder. Old anger, resentment, frustration, being too controlling. And we see all kinds of diseases, migraines, menstrual disorders, depression. The lungs. The lungs house grief, sadness, sorrow, shame, and guilt. And so if you've lost a loved one, or a pet has ran away or whatever, and all of a sudden you develop an unproductive dry cough, that unproductive dry cough is actually the grief stuck in the lungs. Worry and anxiety, over intellectualizing, thinking too much, being stuck in your head, will weaken your spleen and your stomach. And then we have fear that attacks your kidneys, fear or shock. So shock is surviving abuse, some kind of trauma, surviving a severe illness. Let's say you're a veteran, those in the Middle East, whatever you saw there, or Vietnam or whatever. Experiencing those kinds of things will weaken your kidneys, and then we see numerous conditions. But the heart itself is the emperor, empress of the body. It will dictate how much of emotion will be expressed or suppressed. The heart in particular, though, is affected by the emotions of abandonment, loneliness, and lack of joy, overexcitation, and mania. So these specific Qigong practices, what it does is there's moving practices that will focus on the organs and other systems inside the body. And then there's meditative ones like healing sounds for the different organs. And so what it does is it gives people tools right away to be able to deal with their stuff as it comes up. Because when you suppress it, that's what shows up as inflammation and disease. Yes, if you're eating processed foods and, sugar and drinking too much, those kinds of things, of course, that's going to create inflammatory conditions inside the body. But I see it all the time where somebody is physically fit, still dying of carotid artery disease. Doesn't make sense.
Yes. I believe all that you're saying too. Every time I've ever had a physical ailment, I've thought, what's going on in my life? Or I've had an autoimmune thing, and I'm like, okay, what's going on in my life? Because obviously my body's attacking itself. So I find that super interesting. I'm curious about the sounds that you mentioned. I wonder if you'd be willing to share the 5 sounds and the part of the body that they resonate with.
Sure. So I'm just going to start off with the heart. So as a keynote speaker, I give talks to trauma nurses and doctors on disease prevention. I go into the jails, give talks, sheriff's department, social services, county supervisors, all that kind of stuff. And the one Qigong practice that you could take with you anywhere is the heart healing sound. I also call it the dry cry. Because have you ever gotten sad and get that stuck feeling in your throat?
Yep.
Okay. We call that, they have a name for it in Chinese, but we call it the plum seed effect. It's like you swallowed a plum seed and got stuck.
Yeah.
So the healing sound for the heart is ha, because one of the negative emotions that attacks the heart is overjoy. You could actually die of a heart attack from laughing too hard.
Oh my gosh.
And I had the hardest time digesting that, because you always hear, be happy, and stuff like that. Yeah. And then finally,
not too happy.
Not too happy. Right. But that's the way to go, though, right? If I'm going to have my X's on my eyes, I want to be smiling on the way out. So,
right.
So if you think about it, if you have a laughing attack at something, what is the first thing you do? Right?
Yeah.
Or if you're sad about something, a person will sigh. They will yawn a lot. Or some people actually will develop chronic hiccups. And the only way that they are able to cure that in Western medicine is that they put you to sleep
Oh my gosh.
to reset your body.
Yeah.
But those emotions, so the healing sound is ha. And what you do is you imagine a pink cloud filling up into the heart because the color red or pink associates with the heart. And whatever's going on with you currently, you focus on that. But more importantly, what has gone on in the past. Did you have a divorce? Did did your mom die? Or something. I want you to feel that. I want you to see it, visualize it. Who's involved? What's involved? And then as you inhale, you pull that pink cloud into the heart. And then as you exhale, lifting the chin, imagine the circumstance coming from the throat, especially if you have that plum seed feeling there. And you make the sound, ah.
So it's a
Inhale.
deep one. It's a resonant one.
Yes, because now you go higher if you want to, but that's a different kind of practice. But yes, making it a deep sound. Ah, and you imagine that feeling, that circumstance, leaving like a dark cloud, going several feet away from the body and deep in the ground. Now, the cool thing about this is that you could do the sound underneath your breath. So instead of suppressing, saying, "Oh, I'll deal with that when I get home. I'll deal with that later with a martini," just kidding. And I'll deal with that stuff later. You do the sound underneath your breath, and no one will know what you're doing, right? Now, in certain parts of
Is it gentle or forceful when you're doing it?
gentle.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a gentle sound. And it's almost like therapy in a way because I want you to think of the situation. So I want you to pick off the scab. I want you to relive the circumstance. But by associating with this specific organ, with this specific sound, this specific color, this is how you release the vibration from the body. Okay, so that's a heart healing sound. And again, doing the sound underneath your breath, you do it audibly, so you get some alone time, you're in the car, whatever. Certain parts of LA or San Francisco, you get away with doing it audibly. People just think they're
Totally.
normal, right?
On the BART.
Yeah, that's just normal. People just go on with their
Yeah.
with the activity, whatever they're doing. But yeah, doing the sound underneath your breath. The healing sound for the lungs is S. So again, if you're grieving something, you lost a loved one, you feel guilt around a situation, or feel shame around a situation, you feel that. In this case, imagine a white cloud filling up into the lungs. And then as you inhale, pull that breath, that chi into the lungs. Imagine that white cloud. Then as you exhale, making the sound. And this actually will help you start to release the grief from the lungs. And then we move down to the spleen. Well, like I said, the spleen, it's interesting in Western medicine, they'll take out the spleen surgically, they'll remove it quite a bit. But that spleen is so important. It has so many functions inside the body. But the emotions that attack it, like I said, is worry and anxiety. So if you're anxious about something, if you're brooding on something too much, imagine a yellow or orange cloud filling up into the spleen, which is located on the left side of the body. And you don't have to know exactly where these organs are.
I was going to ask that,
A small grapefruit or a small orange, that size of the spleen. And then once again, imagine this yellow orange cloud as you breathe into the left side of the body underneath the rib cage. Then as you exhale, whatever that thing is or circumstance is that's making you feel anxious, you imagine that as you make the whoo sound. So this is a deeper sound too. So again, we're connecting with the organ, we're connecting with the color and the emotion associated with the organ. Then we have fear and fright and shock. If you're fearful of something, went through something that was very shocking for you, and as a result, you start to develop conditions like Meniere's disease or tinnitus. So Meniere's disease is chronic vertigo. Then what you do is that you imagine a blue cloud filling up into the kidneys. You can place your hands on your kidneys if you want, just like with the lungs, you place your hands on your chest if you want, in the heart. And whatever that circumstance is, past or present. So if you do have PTSD, I would focus on past events. Don't put all your apples and oranges in one basket. Try to focus on one thing at a time. And it's okay if different thoughts pass through your mind. That's totally okay. But focus on that event. And then as you pull that blue cloud into the kidneys, then as you exhale, making the foo sound. Foo. And again, imagine that leaving like a dark cloud going several feet away from the body and deep into the ground. And then the last organ is the liver. because in clinical practice, I see so many liver dysfunctions because that liver has over 800 functions inside the body. And again, anger, rage, hatred, old anger, old resentment attacks the liver and the gallbladder and shows up as so many different types of diseases. So the healing sound for the liver is shu. So now you're going to imagine a green cloud filling up into the right side of the body underneath the rib cage, focusing on that situation that made you angry, or somebody or a situation or institution that you're holding resentment towards. Inhale, and then as you exhale, shoo, and imagine that circumstance leaving. And again, all these sounds you could do underneath your breath. And the cool thing about it too is that you could take it with you anywhere, except for do not close your eyes and do this while driving.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's contraindicated for good health.
Yeah.
And you don't need a yoga mat. You don't need special clothing or anything like that. You can take
Yeah.
it with you anywhere. And the beautiful thing I love about Qigong is that it does not discriminate. Gender, race, spiritual, religious background, none of that stuff. And what it does is that it helps give you tools. In this case, these practices here to be able to deal with your mental, emotional state. But then there's other practices on how to circulate energy in the body, the acupuncture meridians in the body, being able to stimulate those as well too. The whole idea is that it's your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual state. Now, there are some Qigong practices out there that may connect to some Taoist ritual or practices or whatnot. But the style that we're teaching is for you to refine your own essence. And so whatever your religious belief structure is something that's going to help you change your vibration to get you closer to God, to get you closer to source, universe, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And so all three are equally as important: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And for the longest time, there has not been a lot of discussion about things we can do in order to benefit our emotional well-being. And in some households and in some cultures, emotions aren't shown.
Yeah.
Right. And so like Japanese, I have a lot of Japanese friends, especially Japanese men, have the highest rate of heart attacks and suicides because they don't show. It's ingrained in the culture. And I know as a kid, or you see the kid starts crying, and the parents like, shut up, and the kids they start learning to shove that stuff down. And again, these emotions are good for us because they are a barometer as to what's going on in our life.
Yeah.
It's when we're not expressing it properly, like I said, that it shows up as disease. And the more that you practice, then what will happen is that you'll start to refine that stuff. And going back to myself, I talked about like those digestive issues. If I eat an avocado or a salad, I was in a fetal position or vomiting 2 hours later.
What?
Any kind of animal fat, anything like that,
Yeah.
forget about it. But then once I started studying Chinese medicine, I recognized I had a lot of anger. I grew up in an angry environment.
Yeah.
People say, Chris, you're angry. I'd be like, screw you, you're angry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talking about, actually, I say another word, but
Right.
okay.
F you.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
And I was, but I've been able to transmute that now, not suppress it, but transmute that. And sure, can I get angry? Sure, I'm like anybody else, but for the most part, it really takes a lot. And nowadays, I have a conversation with my ego
Yeah.
as to whether it's worth saying something or not in a specific situation.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
being able to let it go either way.
Yeah. So it's a constant practice moving forward in life. And then it's also being able to go back in our past and work through old traumas and old feelings and old situations until like our box is a little bit more empty.
Yeah, it's because, right, that's a great way of putting it, because once that box is full and then you have day-to-day stuff come up,
You
right?
blow up. Yeah.
Yeah, you blow up. Yeah. Or a condition will show up. Majority of the skin diseases. So if you break out with rashes or you have systemic acne, that's repressed anger. And sure, take care of your skin, eat the right foods and stuff like that. But let's look at, well, what are you angry about? Or are you not being able to speak up?
Yeah.
and
Right.
express your anger. You
Yeah.
have an aggressive partner or parent that
Mm-hmm.
suppresses your voice, right?
Yeah.
Those kinds of situations, the body says, okay, what am I supposed to do with this?
Mm-hmm.
So depending on other factors inside the body will depend on how that will show up. And so when we see systemic acne or we see hives that show up on the skin, that's too much heat in the blood.
Yeah.
Blood is too hot. And so the blood, the reason why it turns up as red, itchy, rashes or whatever,
It's
is
pissed off.
it's pissed and it's trying to escape out through the pores. That's why
Yeah.
it shows up.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a continual practice. And that's the cool thing too, is because I've been doing this stuff for 30 years. And people say to me like, oh, Chris, I'm surprised that you have this and this and this going on in your life. And I tell them, like, God has not given me that golden ticket.
Yeah.
I get the same BS as everybody else. The difference is that from practice, I utilize these practices when something comes up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we were doing the pre-interview, we were talking about how animals in nature, when things happen and there's a trauma or they get freaked out or scared or hurt, they spend some time alone and they shake it off in nature. And then, or even they'll be really still and then they'll come out when they're ready. But as humans, we just kind of plow through life and we don't take that time to process anything. And so you had some tips and tricks to move through our day to day a little bit better when something like that jars us. Do you feel like sharing that?
Yeah. So one of my other favorite practices that I love to give is called shaking the tree. Kind of like shake it off, like the Taylor Swift song. And seriously, when somebody makes you angry at something,
Mm-hmm.
or you get upset, you see something on social media or something, go into another room and shake from head to toe.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to relax. If you're too stiff, worried about if somebody's going to see you and stuff like
Yeah.
that, you might break something. So you have to relax your body because that's what the animals do. Their nervous system automatically makes them shake. If a dog is happy to see you or
Mm-hmm.
angry, that dog will shake. So it
Yeah.
doesn't matter, both emotions. It will shake.
Hmm.
Two ducks get into a fight. The fight lasts a few seconds. They swim around the pond. And the first thing to do is they violently flap their wings. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're conscious enough to know that they feel this inside the body. They may not know that it's anger like us humans do, but
Yeah.
they feel they feel it, so they violently flap their wings. If they suppressed it and held on to it like as humans, they'd swim around the pond waiting for Bob to come around and pop them in the beak.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes if we have a traumatic experience, our nervous system will make us shake. So, for example, my dad
Mm-hmm.
was in Vietnam
Mm-hmm.
and was in intelligence, was shot down a couple of times. And he said the first time he was shot down, they got out underneath heavy gunfire. And then later on that night, he was at the base camp at the bar. And he said he went to go have a beer. And when he went to drink the beer, his hands started violently shaking.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because his nervous system said, okay, you can pretend like you're a cool, tough 21-year-old.
Yeah.
You almost died. Right?
Yeah.
So the next time somebody makes you angry, go into another room. Your spouse, if you want to start an argument, shake it off in front of them. Or who knows, it might stop the argument altogether. Like, what the hell?
You're both be shaken.
Yeah, what the hell are you guys doing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you may have to do it throughout the day. That's the key.
Well, it seems like you could just do it at the end of every day and it would just be, you could just shake out whatever you didn't even know was there, possibly.
Totally. Yeah. So if you're somebody who journals at night, like how your day was or whatever, which
Mm-hmm.
I also recommend too, because that's an expression of chi as well. You could definitely shake it off a few times. And that's a cool thing about
Mm-hmm.
these Qigong practices as well too. You could do it at night before bed
Yeah.
and you'll find that you sleep more soundly.
Yeah.
And when people are looking for the fountain of youth,
Mm-hmm.
yes,
We're all
proper
looking for that.
hydration. I know, especially here in LA.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Oh my gosh. See anyways, I won't even go there. You see some things that you're like, oh my God, did you just really do that to yourself?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, if you're looking for that fountain of youth, besides proper hydration and sleep and diet, your emotions. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the ways that I diagnose in clinic is I can read a person's face.
Mm-hmm.
And every feature on your face tells me a story of how you think, your personality, and more importantly, what emotions are stuck in the body. And then
Mm-hmm.
more importantly than that, what potential diseases.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking to look younger, longer, work on
Yeah.
the internal stuff because it's going to reflect on the external.
All right, Chris, what emotions are stuck in my body?
Well, you're a very driven person, that's for sure.
I
And
am.
we call is you have bark and bite. What does that mean?
Yep.
That means, yeah, that means when you say something, you expect for it to be done. And
Me?
but also too, you're very generous. You have a we tell how generous you are, but you're generous with your energy and money. But it's going to be especially around people that you trust.
Mhm.
If you don't trust somebody, which I see, especially with the left eye, there's a little bit. The eye is a little bit shorter or smaller than the other, which shows that it's kind of like when you look at somebody like,
Are you
like,
telling me the truth?
yeah, I, I smell BS,
Mhm.
Yeah. So you have a really good BS barometer on you as well too. And but one of the things that I do see, you do laugh a lot. You laugh a lot, and you're spiritually open. We could tell this. It's very subtle, but this little indention that you have right here, this is the third eye, and this is a sign when that area is indented, or what we call is open. You could tell this person is spiritually open.
Mm.
So if you want to test out a guru who's trying to lead you down the path of enlightenment, look at his third eye point and see,
Yeah.
because then you can tell called BS if it's right, or if
There
he's
we
just
go.
leading you down a cult or something like that. But there are some past regrets that you've been through,
Mhm.
and sorrows that have not been fully processed. And one of the things that people will do a lot of times in order to work through that is they'll work out excessively. And working out is great. Physical exercise is excellent. Just going for a walk is great, or going for a hike is great. And at the same time, too, what will happen is that when you go back and you start to process those past regrets, then you'll start to see I'll start to see certain lines and certain features go away.
Oh, interesting.
Hmm.
Once
Yeah.
they've processed through the emotions.
Yep.
All
Yep.
right. So the key to looking younger is to process our emotions.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That's motivation.
That motivation. Just get busy. I know it sucks. Nobody wants to do it. And then some people will say to me, well, Chris, you're having us live in the past. We have to move forward. Well,
Mhm.
sure. Yeah. Let's move forward. Let's don't, at the same time, what I tell people is that if I still see that certain line or feature on the face, it means it's still inside the body. And my job is not to force feed the patient that they have still this daddy issues or whatever going on, is to
Yeah.
present to them that, hey, I'm seeing this here. And oh, by the way, I'm seeing you in clinic right now for X, Y, and Z. And it's not by accident that this is going on.
Yeah. I'm curious if you find people holding on to their past, like saying, "Oh, I want to get rid of it. I want to get rid of it." But then there's this big pull and this big cord that they're unable to cut and release.
Yeah, because people become identified with that.
Mhm.
That becomes our identity, or a certain disease. Like they'll say,
Yeah.
my fibromyalgia, my lupus.
Mhm.
And so, and my expectation when a patient comes into clinic is that they leave feeling better on the first visit, not 2 or 3 visits down the road. And yeah, some people, they're in such denial of the self, and I get it. It's a protection mechanism,
Yeah.
you know. So for the people that want to dive in, then these practices are simple, easy to do. You do it from a seated position, you do them from a standing position. So it's something that, yeah, we really are promoting to show people that there is a way out of suffering. There is a way out of
Mhm.
mental turmoil, and there's a way to be able to process. If you know you're angry and it's creating health problems for you, then let's take a look at that and let's apply these practices and start to see the changes that you want to see in order to live your ultimate life.
Yeah. So am I understanding this correctly that
Hmm.
basically I know I'm gonna cliff note it a little bit, but the Qigong practice is slow, gentle movements that are done from one place, so you're not moving around a lot, combined with meditations, and then also combined with those sound healing practices. Is that what you're going to get if you go to any Qigong class, or is that kind of the style that you've created?
Well, it's not this is a system that's been passed down. And so the difference with what we're doing, and then like in my new book, in my other Qigong book, we're not just teaching the Qigong because it feels good.
Mm-hmm.
The relaxation part is a byproduct. What we're after is no matter what practice it is that I'm doing, that I'm teaching you, it's all meant to do something medicinally inside the body.
Yeah.
So it contains a yin and yang aspect. The yin aspect is the mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
The yang aspect is then using the mind intent in order to connect with a certain area in the body, whether it's an internal organ, or like, for example, I teach this white pearl meditation that I have on Spotify and on iTunes. And the purpose of the white pearl meditation is to pull your breath below, about 1 inch below the belly button. Inhale, imagine this white pearl expanding with your hands one on top of the other. And then as you exhale, imagine the light, the white light and the warmth radiating around the waist to the kidneys on the low back. So number one, with that white pearl meditation, we're getting you out of your head and back into your body.
Yeah.
Back into your root. And we're also benefiting the kidneys. The center and balance meditation, that center and balance meditation that I have on iTunes as well too. The purpose of that meditation also get you out of your head back into your body, but get you to be able to feel your body inside and out. So we start off melting down through the front, back of the body, left and right sides, and then through the center of the body. It's almost like Vipassana, if you've ever done Vipassana.
Yeah, I've done it.
The 11-day retreat.
Yeah,
life-changing.
yeah,
Anyways,
not easy.
Yeah, it's not. I know. I tell people it's probably one of the most physically and mentally painful things I've ever done.
Yeah, 100% of both of those. Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So that could be a totally different subject. So this center and balance meditation is similar to that, but I really want people to feel the organs. And if you do this meditation daily, guess
How
what?
long is it?
It's about 15 minutes.
Okay.
And if you do this meditation daily, guess what? You'll be able to feel when an organ is out of balance before it actually will show up as disease. So that's the whole premise of Chinese medicine and Qigong, is that you become your own superior doctor.
Yeah,
What does that
awesome.
mean?
Yeah.
That means that you are aware of your body enough, you're able to listen to your body enough to where you can prevent disease before disease sets in. But also Qigong is good too, because what it does is that it helps to reverse the disease process or chronic pain issues and or depressive issues, which are actually organ imbalances that then affect the mind.
Yeah.
So that's a great thing. So there's different styles of Qigong. This style I call it from the 5 element school.
Okay.
Because the 5 elements are at least inside the body, we're looking at the 5 major organs of the body, 5 major emotions, the colors that are associated with those 5
What
organs.
are the 5 emotions?
So the 5 emotions: heart, abandonment, loneliness,
Okay.
lack of joy; liver, anger, rage, resentment, old anger; lungs, grief, sadness; spleen, worry and anxiety; kidneys, fear and shock. So yeah, so there's different there's other Qigong practices like the microcosmic orbit meditation that I talked about, like that. So inhaling up the spine, exhaling down the front. Well, why is that? Well, 2 of the major extraordinary meridians of the body is called the governing vessel. It comes up here, ends here, and the conception vessel comes up from the perineum up to right underneath the lip here, or underneath the tongue. So doing that meditation, inhaling up the spine, exhaling down the front, eventually, and you can imagine a white light as you're doing this, or a blue light, doesn't matter, whatever it's going to take for you to get connected to the practice. They say it takes approximately 100 days to open up those 2 main vessels of the body, but it's like a reservoir. Once those 2 main vessels really open up, then the other 12 regular acupuncture meridians cross those 2 vessels at some point or another. So it's like a river. The river overflows its banks, and guess what? The other smaller rivers then benefit, and those rivers, guess what? Feed into the 12 major organs of the body. But also, too, when we're looking at our cognitive abilities, increasing the gray matter in our brain, that meditation is good for that too. Stimulating the central nervous system, CNS, that meditation is great for doing that as well too. So again, no matter how simple these practices are, they're all meant to do something inside the body. So with that practice too, by the way, that's why we place the tip of the tongue to the roof of the mouth behind the teeth. So like you're saying the letter N. Why? Because you're purposefully connecting those two channels of the body.
Gently too, right?
Gently, yeah, like you're curling, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And also too, so that closes the upper gate, they say,
Mm-hmm.
and then the lower gate is lightly squeezing the sphincter muscle, like about the pressure of closing your eyelid.
Oh, okay, gently. So are you maintaining that squeeze, or is there a point where you squeeze?
You can, if you want to help to pump the energy up, you can go ahead, squeeze a little more to help to pump the energy up, and then allow the energy to come down.
Do you release it when it comes down to the front?
Yeah, yeah, but you still try to maintain that gentle, just the gentle squeeze of the sphincter muscle, just to make sure that you're closing that gate as the energy comes back up. And then, like I said, then the upper gate, making sure the tip of the tongue is on the roof of the mouth behind the teeth. This
Mm-hmm.
also, I don't know if you've ever heard of Taoist sexology before, but
No.
okay, so this practice also for intimacy is a great practice that a couple can do together. And for men out there that are listening to this, this is a great practice to help you have better control over your
Mm-hmm.
release.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. So this practice goes deep, but it's such a simple practice to do, right?
Yeah.
And again, Chinese medicine is based on Chinese medicine. I'm not just randomly oh, I came up
Right.
with meditation. I got to breathe
No,
that.
I actually know about that meditation. I did like a Reiki and shamanic journey course, and the gal taught that to my husband, and he was practicing it, and he found that it increased his energy a ton. Like he had tons of energy when he would be finished with that meditation.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that these different meditations, there's specific meditations.
Hmm.
We started off our conversation talking about the organs and the emotions, but
Yeah.
then we have these other meditations and practices that, yes, will harness this energy. And again, if people don't know what chi is, like what in the heck is energy and chi?
Hmm.
Think of it in terms of blood or fluids inside your body.
Right.
We have a saying in Chinese medicine that the blood contains the chi, and the chi moves the blood around the body. If your blood is vibrant and strong, your hair will be lustrous. You can tell how strong a person's blood is by looking at their hair.
Hmm.
They'll have vitality, a good glow in their complexion, right? If your blood is deficient, you're not going to want to speak. You're probably going to be inert, want to stay indoors, right? Don't have the energy to do anything. So think of chi inside the body, anyways, in terms of the blood or synovial fluids or digestive fluids move around inside the body. The digestive fluids, for example, we need those to be able to assimilate the food. And those digestive fluids, that's energy, that's chi,
Hmm.
right? That's you need chi to create movement, and also you
Right.
need heat as well too.
Like a
Right?
sluggish digestion, which would be like the chi is stuck.
Stagnant, yeah, we see that a lot with what we call as liver chi stagnation
Hmm.
due to anger not being processed. And
Hmm.
sure, you could do. In fact, what's interesting, what I'm going to say is, we're actually doing a gallbladder liver flush this week. We actually go in for the colonics this afternoon, and then do the Epsom salt thing tonight, and stuff like that. So, so you could do the liver flush. I think that's great because it's a gentle way to remove these gallstones from ourselves. But most people need a liver emotional flush.
Hmm. Right. You can do the physical thing, but it's not ever going to resolve unless you flush your emotional component.
Yeah, you have to do it. And my good friend, I don't know if you know him, David Avocado Wolf. He's amazing. He has millions of followers. He's the one that started originally the vegetarian raw food diet thing. He's now
Yeah.
saying. But anyways, I was at one of his lectures. He had a lecture here in Laguna earlier this year, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and pulled me up on stage because this young gal, she rose her hand. She goes, I've done the parasite cleanses. I've done all these flushes. I've done the water fast and whatever, but
Hmm.
my stomach enzyme count is still high. And so David calls me up on stage. He said, well, let's ask Dr. Shelton. So I took one look at her face. She's sitting in the front row. Attractive young woman in good shape. And I could see just how much anger she had.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously I'm not going to call her out in front of hundreds of people in the audience, right? So I just said, yes, we could do the parasite cleanses, which is good for us to do, and these other types of cleanses and flushes. At the same time, when the anger is not processed properly, then what will happen is that it will show up as inflammation and disease. And she actually I actually ended up treating her in my hotel room, and we got to the bottom of what the resentment was. And
Wow.
guess what? Her
It
stomach
resolved.
enzymes are back to normal.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think our body holds on to a lot of stuff that doesn't serve us. And then if we don't release it, then over time, it just starts to destroy us.
Yeah. Yeah, in my book that came out 2 months ago on Chris Shelton's Easy Guide to Fix Neck and Back Pain, one of the things I talk about is like I break down the three parts of the spine: cervical, thoracic, and lumbar. And all cervical issues, unless you're doing jujitsu and you popped your shoulder out, you're a pitcher, you popped your shoulder out. Every single cervical or neck issue that I've ever seen has to do with emotions that affect the heart.
Hmm.
Every single one.
Well, so many people have neck issues.
And they blame it on their pillow, or
Yeah.
they say that my personal trainer didn't spot me correctly,
Yep.
or my mattress, or my dog. My dog tugged me. This guy from this guitarist from this famous rock and roll band, he flew into our clinic in San Jose with cervical arthritis, and I said to him, I said, "Hey, brother," I said, 2 months or 2 years before the pain showed up, because he had this for 2 years. I said, "What was going on in your life?" And he said what everybody says: "Oh, this is my pillow. Oh, it's my mattress is bad." And he said, "Oh, I think it's stress of being on tour." And then he said, "No, I think the way I hold my guitar on stage." And then he paused and he thought about it. And he said, "No, actually, 2 weeks before the pain showed up, my horse died."
Mm-hmm.
So his horse died. He took care of business.
Yeah.
I'm back on tour. Yeah, he did a testimonial for me on a TV show called Celebrity Sweat. He said, "Yeah, Chris Shelton got rid of my arthritis in 30 minutes. No, what I did was, yes, I got rid of the pain. But then what happened was I facilitated his body, then his own DNA, to heal itself.
Mm. Wow. Yeah.
To heal itself. So many of these conditions, and back issues. Again, lower back issues. Women tend to suffer from lower back pain more than men, and back pain is really quite simple to fix. It's quite easy to fix. The only time that I have a hard time is when someone has a lot of resentment towards a male figure. Now, it doesn't necessarily just have to be a male. It could be somebody
Mm-hmm.
with very masculine qualities.
Yeah. I mean, it makes me think that um, I'm curious about something like this. Like my mom has scoliosis. It's pretty bad. And she had it as a child, and then she's in her mid to late 70s. And not so long ago, she had a back surgery, and they did a X-ray, and her spine. They've never seen a spine like that because of the scoliosis. It was so jacked up. What would your theory be on something like that, where there is some kind of birth defect, or there's something? Yeah, I'm curious.
Okay, so postnatal, then you have to say, well, what was going on with the parents?
Hmm. Like generational.
Generational. Yeah, it's generational, number one.
Hmm.
While the mother was
Hmm.
carrying the fetus, what was her diet like, and what was her emotional state like?
Hmm. Yeah,
Was
my mom's father was in the war.
oh
Came back with some major PTSD.
okay, there you go. Yeah, so then you start to break that stuff down, then you can start to understand why then somebody is born with scoliosis. Because especially
Hmm.
the mother child bond is so innately intact, and
Hmm.
that fetus is going to respond to whatever situation the mother is going through.
Hmm.
The mother's feeling joy, that fetus feels the endorphin, right? Feels that. If there's heavy stress, if there's fighting and arguing going on, or yeah, any kind of violence or anything like that, sure, that when the sympathetic nervous system is in heightened alert, and especially the longer that the mother is in a sympathetic state,
Hmm.
then the more chances of the child being born with a certain condition is going to show up. Now, if the scoliosis was formed afterwards, meaning like maybe in their 20s they start forming and stuff like that, then we have to say, okay,
Hmm.
well, what has been happening in the person's life in order for that to start to shift like that? And because your DNA wants to be healthy, I don't
Hmm.
believe that your body wants to be sick. And actually, Deepak Chopra and a brain surgeon wrote a book several years ago called The Super Gene, and talks about your DNA. And they talk about scientifically, it's proven that that helix, a DNA strand, even
Yeah.
if you're born with a hereditary quote unquote condition, there's only small parts of that or portions of that helix that shows like high blood pressure or diabetes or whatever. So they've proven that no, if you change your diet, you change your environment, and you change how you emotionally respond to situations or stimuli, you will not get the condition.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So my mom did not take care of herself. We were kind of poor growing up, and so I had all kinds of health problems as a young kid. I used to go into convulsions all the time. Like I was a mess.
Mm-hmm.
And but if you were to look at prenatal of what was going on was in the womb, then you could understand why I had these health conditions. And that's one of the things about qigong that I think is so powerful is that you can actually, if you apply it, you can actually change it. And thank God I was introduced to this in my 20s
Mm-hmm.
because who knows if I'd still be here today.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 54 now,
Yeah.
and I plan on living at least another 54 years.
There we go. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and it's the quality of life, and that's one of the things too. Is that people they say should live 120 years and not suffering until the day that they pass on or transition. It's
Mm-hmm.
living, it's passing on in a graceful transition as opposed to suffering from any kind of chronic disease or chronic pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering before we wrap up if there's any common misconceptions that you encounter often around Qigong.
Oh yes. First and foremost is that it's pseudoscience. The other thing that I was getting to is that because I'm Christian, and so some other Christians would say that I was doing New Age stuff,
Yeah.
and again, this is not some kind of belief structure. The other thing too is that people say, well, you have to believe in it for it to work. True, positive thought always brings about positive manifestations,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I tell people just do the practice. Follow my YouTube page or get on. We have something called the Chi Club that's live. We have people around the world that come on. We have the 30 days of Qigong on there. And just follow those 30 days and let's see how you feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see how
Awesome.
you feel. Yeah, because again, we're not here to promote something that's fake. In fact, if Qigong was fake, it still wouldn't be around over 5,000
Right.
years later. Like
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it just wouldn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're doing is giving the power. If you want that power back to be in control of your own health,
Yeah.
then this is something else to add on to your workout regimen, your diet regimen, your sleep regimen, your hydration regimen, your social network, all that kind of stuff. It's another component that really does give you tangible tools, not just talking about it. Now, therapy is good to a certain point,
Yeah.
but if you're paying that therapist and 10 years later you're still dealing with the same thing,
Yes.
I'd fire the therapist.
Yes.
And it's less expensive to do qigong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, Chris, how do people connect with you? I'm going to put all of your links in the show notes and things like that. But I would love for you to share with people about your two books. You just had a new one released, and any other offerings that you'd like to share.
Yeah. So we have the two books. This one here, the Chris Shelton's Easy Guide to Emotional Wellbeing with Qigong. This book, it's released January 15th or January 14th, but we have 400 copies left. The publisher sent this book on Chris Shelton's Easy Guide to Fix Neck and Back Pain. This took me 10 years to write.
Oh my gosh.
There's no other book out there like it. It's a beautiful book. This is my friend Nari, who's on the cover. She's an actor and model. And she's also the model inside the book where I demonstrate the techniques. So not only am I talking about what is the etiology behind these conditions, but how can you fix it yourself so you don't have to pay to see someone like me? So
Yeah.
yes, check us out on Amazon as well too, but also go to sheltonqigong.com. TikTok is really seen to blow up. People have been sending me their pictures on TikTok for me to read their face. In fact, what's funny is that last year I made it to the 4th round of America's Got Talent because an
Yeah.
executive producer found me on TikTok reading faces, and she's like, "Wait, he's describing me." So, anyways, but that's Chris_Shelton_Qigong, and again, you spell Qigong Qigong, and
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're in the Los Angeles area, we do have a clinic in downtown Burbank and Los Angeles, and also we have a clinic still in San Jose, California, where one of our practitioners owns and operates that center up there in San Jose.
Yeah.
So check us out.
Well, thank you, Chris. I love this conversation, and I feel like I have a little bit of a grasp on this topic now, and I really appreciate your time and your expertise. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. This is a lot of fun. You're a fun host to have this conversation with.